Hello, Year 9, and welcome to today's lesson. Before you start, please make sure you've downloaded 3 attached files: the context document, the overview document, and the exemplar essay question and waggle PDF. To start off with, a knowledge retrieval task. This is an essay. It should take you about 10 minutes, and the question is, how does the represent advert use positive representations to persuade the audience to donate blood? You should refer to the codes and conventions of advertising. I would suggest that you use the PEEA structure you've learned in English. Your point, for example, could be the persuasive technique used. Or if you want to mention the theory of representation, think about Stuart Hall and dominant readings. An example or examples from the adverts, including the codes and conventions used. Explain how your chosen moments and codes and conventions are used to persuade and are used to give positive representations. And an analysis of a key moments, directing me to show that you're right. This is a 10-minute essay. You should write, I would say, at least 2 paragraphs. When you've completed that, move on to the next slide. Now here's a kind of waggle of the point part of it. Represented initially quite subtle in its attempt to persuade the niche target audience. You see there I've used some key terminology: niche target audience. To donate blood, since it's not completely clear what the clip is promoting until Lady Lacheur and the captions, another piece of terminology there, tell the audience directly at the end. The dominant reading of the advert, there's a bit of media theory, is very clear. The BAME communities are extremely well represented across a wide range of social and cultural life contexts, with implications of previous historical underrepresentation, context again, but in this critical area they are not. And that would be a good point and evidence opening. You could mention close-ups, low-angle shots, you could mention calls to action, you could mention hard sell and soft sell. These are all things that you might have mentioned in your essay. So just to remind you, the difference between social and cultural contexts. Social contexts are when we talk about activities that take place in society. So, for example, politics, sport, these things in general could be regarded as social contexts. Cultural contexts are more specifically things related to the arts, to the media, particular individuals, particular events. So within the represent advert, we see representation of both. We see social contexts, such as sporting activities like boxing, the Olympics. We also see social figures, such as politicians, scientists. Culturally, we have particular individuals, such as Nicola Adams, the boxer, Chuka Umunna, the former MP, and so on and so forth. So we have a range of social and cultural contexts in the advert. Just a reminder about essentialism and social constructionalism, which we talked about in relation to gender, but it works equally well in terms of race, because it's one of the reasons why racism is such a prevalent thing. Basically, a lot of racists take an essentialist viewpoint, and the idea that somebody who was a member of the BAME community is somehow inferior. And it could be argued that some members of the BAME community would regard themselves as being subjected to an essentialist system where bias, conscious or unconscious bias, leads to an assumption about their capabilities and their nature. And attempts to kind of combat racism are really designed to challenge that essentialist viewpoint. Social constructionism, which I would suggest to you that this advert is absolutely trying to achieve, is the argument that people are not born into a particular situation, that your life is partly determined by social circumstance, and social circumstance is not set in stone. And the advert very, very clearly presents a number of members of the BAME community who have risen to very, very high levels of success in a range of different social and cultural fields. So Chuck Ramuna, at one point, certainly when the advert was made, was a very, very successful politician. Nicola Adams, a very, very successful medal-winning boxer, and so on and so forth. So what we're seeing is an advert which effectively is challenging this idea of essentialism. However, at the end, the message there that not enough members of the BAME community are giving blood would seem to suggest that part of the point of the advert is that in that one particular circumstance, there is something going on. There is perhaps a subconscious essentialism within the BAME community that they are not willing or able to do this absolutely vital thing. And the advert is trying to offer a socially constructionalist solution, effectively saying, change your approach, and stating very clearly that members of the BAME community have the power to do this. I think that's quite a fascinating idea to look at. A reminder about reception theory, which was suggested by Stuart Hall. Reception theory suggests that an advert can be read by an audience in broadly three different ways. Preferred or dominant, which is what the producer wants you to think. Negotiated, where the audience will take some elements of what the producer wants, but may have suspicions about others. And oppositional, where the audience will reject what the producer wants. Now, in this case, the preferred reading of the advert is very clearly celebrate the BAME community. We're doing great. We've got really strong representation in all these different areas, and we need to be better at giving blood, and therefore we want you to go out and give blood. That's the fundamental message. A negotiated reading might be, for example, that someone watches the advert and says, okay, well, I accept that we do need to give blood save a life. That's a very positive message, but I don't see myself there. I don't see myself represented in that advert because my experience as a member of the BAME community, it does not reflect what I'm seeing here. And so that might be a negotiated view. The oppositional view might well be that if you're not a member of the BAME community, you think, well, that doesn't count for me because I'm not black, Asian, minority, ethnic. If you are a member of the BAME community, you might be alienated by the fact that you are not seeing yourself represented there. And there may well be cultural reasons why you don't want to give blood. It may well be something which doesn't fit into your cultural view, and the advert isn't going to persuade you to do that. What I'd like you to do now is have a go at filling in the table about context. Now, I've identified several different contexts that the advert covers, and these are all pretty much social and cultural contexts. Sport, that I'd suggest to you is both a social and cultural context. Sport has both social and cultural connotations. STEM, politics, health, they are all social contexts. They affect people socially. Drama, theatre and art, music, video, rap, and music of black origin, they are all cultural contexts because they're part of the arts scene. And then you might have identified other context. So I've filled in the sports one as an example for you. You've got Nicola Adams, who's a boxer, and Aid Adepetin, the basketball player, who also got a footballer whose name I don't know, but you might be able to know who he is. And why have they been used? Well, I think they've been used to celebrate strength and success. And you'll notice that on the table I've given you, you've got some EGs to help you. And sport is obviously one of those areas where members of the BAME community can demonstrate real success. And I say that the BAME community are shown succeeding in a wide range of areas rather than in minor sports. I mean, football and athletics are both very significant sports, and they suggest a great deal of success. I've done a few notes myself. If you're struggling with any of those, you can use my notes to help you. And hopefully these will give you an indication of the kind of things you could have noted down in the time that you took on that. We're gonna wrap this up by looking at an exam question. This is a 6-mark question, and the question is: represent the NHS blood and transplant campaign video uses a range of representations in order to appeal to a black and minority ethnic audience. This is very similar to the question I asked you at the start. How are the different representations used in order to appeal to this target audience? The 6-mark question. So again, that's a question that should take you to 10 minutes to answer. Now, before you have a go at writing the answer to that question, we're going to kind of break it down here. We're looking at the anatomy of the question. It uses a range of representations. That's the suggestion. That's the first key thing to think about. How are the different representations used to appeal to the target audience? The kind of things you should be thinking about. This isn't a representation question, and it links to the target audience. We're thinking about positive role models to encourage donation of blood. Wants the target audience to be part of this. Links to who you could be. There's also a subtle play on guilt at the end, the use of the word we and ain't. We see a wide range of representations, although as I discussed, there are some exclusions, but it does try and involve as much of the audience as it can. Uses direct address, uses we, and also address to camera, which is very similar, a code and convention of music video, and in a way is kind of pleading quality, the call to action that is please come do this thing. The images and the messages are upbeat. It's trying to inspire the audience to get involved. It's trying to inspire the audience to have a go. So what might a good answer look like to this question? Well, it might look like something like this. Represent is targeted specifically at the BAME community in order to increase the number of blood donors from that sector of society. That is giving you a point for demonstrating you understand what the advert is for. The video starts by representing that audience to themselves as people with a capacity to succeed. Quote, you could be a rapper, you could be a pilot. And stresses the potential of young BAME people to achieve their ambitions in many walks of life, designed so that the audience actively engages with the video. So there I'm explaining the representations, how those representations are communicated in the video, and how the audience is being engaged, that appeal to the target audience. It also uses a personal mode of address by switching to the first person. We are the voice of the streets. We are the ones making policies. This appeals directly to the target audience because it is inclusive. We are. A succession of black and Asian role models is shown in the context of their success. For example, the House of Parliament Science Laboratory, and examples from the video. Again, this anchors, key media word there. The point successful people get involved in improving society, and you can do this too by donating blood. And that is how the representation is used to appeal to the audience. Finally, the audience is represented to themselves as people who will be fired up by the challenge to give blood, save a life. The producers have chosen to challenge negative stereotypes of the BAME community by aligning the Give Blood message with a sense of pride in the community and the potential of its members. The producers of Represent have chosen an overwhelmingly upbeat and positive representation of the BAME community, linked this to the campaign's inspirational message. And that is what a good one looks like. It's a 6-mark answer. You can see it's a paragraph, 2 paragraphs of work. Absolutely covers everything. Right, so a little bonus here for those of you who did this yesterday. If you did this yesterday, you don't have to do it again. If you didn't do this yesterday, now's your chance to do it. This is the question from the end of yesterday's lesson, or the last lesson rather. Represent is a hybrid media product. Now, if you want to have another go at this one, if you weren't happy with your answer, you can do. If you didn't have a go at it last time, then I'm afraid you're going to have a go at it today. I've given you a bit more structure. I'd like you to think about the waggle I just showed you. I'd like you to have a go at applying that to this question using the PEA structure. So, do you agree that it's a hybrid media product and why? giving an example. So if you do agree, then give examples which show that it is a hybrid media product. If you don't agree, examples that show that it isn't. If you think that it is to a certain extent, you can give a couple of examples which show both sides. Explanation: how do your examples show or not show the hybridity? And then an analysis: how do those elements promote the message of the product? Think about using key media terminology. This is a media language question, but you can talk a bit about representation, but you're going to be talking about shots, edits, the soundtrack, the mise-en-scène, things like that. That you talk about advertising codes and conventions like hard sell, soft sell, call to action, those kind of things. It's a 10-minute question. Have a go, see how you get on. That is it for the NHS advert, our second advert. And this particular exam topic, we're moving on to the OMO advert and our final advert next time. Please look through this checklist. Ideally, you've been ticking it off as you go, but if you haven't, now's the time. Review your notes. Make sure that you understand all of these things. If there are any of these bullet points that you don't understand, for example, you don't know what a niche audience is, you don't understand how the advert might be hybrid, you don't understand how the advert is intertextual with music video, then you will need to make sure that you ask me. If you're happy with all of these things, if you're happy you've got your notes all sorted, then that's great. But it really is up to you to let me know if there's anything you're not sure about. Please do email me if you have any questions, and I will answer it to the best of my ability. Anyway, please make sure that you photographed your work. Please make sure that you have uploaded your work. Do make sure it's attached. Please make sure that you've turned your work in. And then that is it.